In football, there's one position where you can do everything right and be the hero for 89 minutes and 59 seconds, only to become a total villain in a single second with nowhere to hide and nothing to redeem yourself. This is the sharp knife of the art of goalkeeping. I can remember the highs that come with making a last gasp save that bails out your team. And sometimes I feel for those who've never experienced what it's like to save a game-winning penalty or have people ask you, how the fuck did you save that? There's no many feelings that come remotely close to it. It's a high you dream for every single time you pull on a pair of gloves. But then there's a dark side to this. A ball slips out of your fingers and into the net. A communication error leaves you stranded and all a striker needs to do is walk the ball into an empty goal. A miscalculated pass, a split-second lapse in concentration that causes your team to lose a match. And for that, there's nothing worse you can ever experience. The guilt, the shame, anger, regret, embarrassment, wishing you could either suddenly discover a time machine to 30 seconds before, or if you could bury your head in a meter-deep hole. Goalkeepers are crazy, stupid, brilliant enigmas, and to be one, it takes tons of either courage or naivety. I can't tell. Every time you slip on a pair of gloves, there's a terrifying razor-thin line between being the hero and the villain. This is the story of how that line gets crossed. One mistake can be a career-defining nightmare. Let me start by saying the keeper is the loneliest position in all of football. While everyone else on a football pitch is connected through rules, colors, and positions, we're totally isolated, both physically and psychologically separate. Wins for a goalkeeper are seen as quiet nods of approvals and simple, that's your job mentality. Our failures, they're public spectacles replayed time and time again. Strikers can miss open goal after open goal, but the moment he scores, he's the hero again. A keeper can make a dozen world-class saves, but if one little thing goes wrong and the ball squirms through his hands, he's lost the team the game, the trust of the fans, and his reputation for years to follow. It's this cruel reality that a whole career of being solid can be forgotten and a reputation shattered in one single moment. Pun intended, we're going to dive into some of the stories of keepers who've lived this nightmare to understand what this curse is, the psychological toll it takes, and why this beautiful game can be so unforgiving to keepers, aka football's most underrated and overhated position. Why would anyone pick a position that's defined by such brutal stakes? It's some weird mix of personality, obsession, and a strange love of all that makes a keeper. Brad Friedel, former American national player and scariest looking dad at a family barbecue, said it perfectly. He said, being a goalkeeper gives you a unique perspective on things. You're part of a team, yet somehow separate, and there are no grey areas, with success or failure being measured in real time. And you have a physical job, which you can only do well by paying attention to your mental well-being. A great goalkeeper has to have the keys to a great mindset. And that's the crux and paradox of it. To be the best goalkeeper, you need to have the best mind for it. No grey areas, a position of absolute clarity, save or goal, hero or villain. One of my first core memories of being a goalkeeper was when I was 5 years old. This was like 25 years ago. It was in my city of Adelaide, and they'd put junior teams to play small-sided games during the halftime of National Soccer League matches. Our whole team was excited, but no one wanted to play in goal, so I put my hand up. At the end of the 10-minute scratch match, I made a pretty difficult save, admittedly, diving low to my right as we counter-attacked and scored to win this little scratch match. And from that moment, mate, it was a done deal. I got a shout-out from my coach in the team talk after the game. I could hear drunk adults in the stand behind me scream out, "What a save!" And there was no greater feeling. For a lot of keepers, it's almost a rebel call. The idea of being all alone, being isolated with a different kit and having your own set of rules, in some ways, you're special and you have the power to single-handedly save your teammates. It's why it's so appealing for some people. Like when you make a fingertip save to push a shot onto the crossbar, the collective gasp from the crowd followed by a roar of relief, it's unforgettable. It's an immense feeling of pride that you kept your team safe. This is the love story part. It's the part that makes you dive at a striker's feet without a second thought. The part that makes you hurt and ache after every game, covered in mud and burned skin, but feeling deeply satisfied. For lots, it's an obsession with being perfect. And that's why keepers don't shut the fuck up if they've kept a clean sheet with no hiccups. But with that love comes this shadow, a constant voice in the back of your head of what can go wrong. And when it does, it can turn into a horror story in an instant. First, every single goal is, on some level, visually pinned on the keeper. The camera always ends up on you picking the ball out of the net. You're the last person the ball went past. Even if a goal is a result of a total defensive breakdown 20 yards upfield, the final lasting image is of goalkeeping failure. A defender's mistake, yeah, it's fleeting, and keepers can cover for them. But a keeper's mistake, though, that's final. It's a goal. It's always a goal, 99% of the time. Second is isolation. Like when you make a great save, you might get a quick pat on the back, knuckle bumps, couple of hugs from your teammates. But when you make a howler, you are utterly alone. The 10 other guys on your team turn their backs and trudge to the center circle for the restart, leaving you to stand in goal. Some might turn to you and say, hey, no worries, on to the next one. But they don't quite understand what it's like. That walk to gather the ball from the back of the net with the weight of every single eye judging you is one of the loneliest journeys in human existence. When you make a mistake, man, it's bad. There's not a hole deep enough you'd climb into. It's doubly worse because you can't redeem yourself really in any way. You can't just dribble 10 players, knock one in the top bins and say, hey, my bad, that's on me. You have to stand there, pray something bad doesn't happen again, and you have all the rest of the time in the game, in the change room, in the days that follow to think about it. If you're someone who cares too much like me, it can ruin your weekends, it can ruin your relationships, it can honestly ruin your life if you let it. A keeper can make 100 solid saves in a season, not one mention. They're expected to do that. One fumble on the biggest stage, it'll be replayed for years and years to come. You'll become a punchline, a meme. And finally, keepers have milliseconds to make a decision. Dive left, dive right, come out, stay on your line, use your feet, use your hands. A moment of hesitation is fatal. And once you've decided, that's it, there's no return. All this creates a pressure cooker unlike any other position on the field, where the mental game is just as, if not more important than the physical one. Perhaps no story shows the full devastating power of the goalkeeper's curse more than Loris Karius. The 2018 Champions League final is in Kiev. It's Liverpool versus Real Madrid on the biggest stage in club football. Karius was having a fairly solid yet uneventful season, but on this night, his world fell apart in the most public and painful way imaginable. It's early in the second half. Karius collects the ball and tries to roll it out quickly, but he doesn't quite see Benzema's lurking, who sticks out a foot and diverts the ball into an empty net. 1-0 for Real Madrid. It was a bizarre, unbelievable lapse in concentration that for a moment was almost forgiven once Sadio Mane fought back for Liverpool 5 minutes later. But the real nightmare was yet to come. Later, with the game still kind of in the balance at 2-1 after a Bale clinic with that bicycle kick, I mean, holy shit, that deserves way more credit. With 8 minutes to go, a confident Bale hits one from distance directly at Karius. It should have been a comfortable save. Instead, Karius seems to completely misjudge the flight of the ball and parries it into his own net. The look on his face was just one of hollow devastation. At the final whistle, he was collapsed to the turf in tears before walking over to Liverpool fans to apologise. And there's no other word to describe it, but it was heartbreaking. The immediate aftermath was a shitstorm of abuse. He got death threats on social media. He was scapegoated for Liverpool's loss. But here's the insane part. What came out days later, medical exams revealed that just minutes before that first mistake, Karius had been elbowed in the head by Sergio Ramos and had sustained a concussion. Doctors stated that the concussion likely caused visual and spatial dysfunction, which could have directly affected his performance in the game. But the diagnosis did little to change the narrative. At that point, the damage was done. The image of his mistakes was just way too powerful. Liverpool ended up signing Alisson that summer, and Karius was sent out on loan. His confidence shattered, and his career at the top level has never recovered since. The story of Loris Karius is the ultimate cautionary tale. It shows how even with a legitimate medical explanation, the visual evidence of a mistake can be so damning that it becomes the only truth that matters. In other words, a complete shit show. To really understand how a single moment can destroy a public image, we have to talk about Robert Green. It's the 2010 World Cup, and England, a strong side with always huge expectations, is playing their opening match against the USA. And for a keeper at a World Cup, this is the moment you dream of. until something goes wrong. In the 40th minute, England are cruising 1-0. Clint Dempsey hits a hopeful, speculative shot from 25 yards, and it was a routine, bouncing shot that a Premier League keeper like Green would expect to save 100 times out of 100. In training, we'd call this a pass back. He got his body behind it, he bent down to scoop it up, but somehow, inexplicably, the ball squirmed through his hands and trickled over the line. The immediate image was Green on his knees, head in his hands, in pure despair. The match ended 1-1, but in the court of public opinion, the verdict was brutal. The media dubbed it the hand of Claude. Green was immediately dropped for the next match, and his career as England's number one was over in the blink of an eye. And despite a long and respectable club career with almost 600 appearances, that one moment became his legacy. So unfortunate. Rob Green is the perfect example of the curse's power. It didn't matter he made a crucial save later in that same game. The story was already written. He was the guy who fumbled. It shows how one televised failure creates this permanent stain that overshadows years of being a total professional. Sometimes the curse doesn't just stain a reputation, it kills a career at a club before it's even started. It's 1999, Manchester United were the kings of Europe, fresh off winning the treble, but then they had a problem. The legend Peter Schmeichel had left, and my boy Mark Bosnich and his amazing laugh got injured. So Alex Ferguson spent a hefty £4.5 million on Massimo Taibi, fresh from a season at Venezia. His debut was a mixed bag. Against Liverpool, he made an error for a goal, but then made a bunch of brilliant saves and was named man of the match. And it seemed like he had the character and the skills to succeed in the EPL. But then came the match against Southampton. Matt Letizia hits this speculative, weak shot from distance. It trickled along the ground. Taibi gets down, looked like he was in complete control, only to let the ball squeeze through his legs and into the net, face down, ass up, and the reaction of United fans in shock behind him improves the more you watch it. And the English press was merciless. One newspaper dubbed him the blind Venetian. A few games later, he let 5 in against Chelsea, and that was the end. Taibi's story is a brutal look at how quickly the narrative can be weaponized against the keeper. He wasn't even given time to recover. The Letizia goal was visually comical, yeah, so basic that it became an instant symbol of his supposed incompetence. He became the punchline for Manchester United. And what's often lost is that Taibi went on to have a long, modestly successful career back in Italy, and he even scored a goal with Regina. But in England, he's remembered for one thing. His man of the match debut was forgotten. The unforgettable error was all that mattered in the eyes of the public. Also, while you're here, it'd be sweet if you subscribe. Thanks. The curse doesn't just target the unproven. It can strike the very best in the world at the peak of their powers. I mean, you take David De Gea in the 2018 World Cup. Going into the tournament, he was widely considered to be one of the top 2 best goalkeepers on the planet, and he wasn't number 2. He just won the Premier League's Golden Glove, and he seemed to only be improving with time. And then Spain's opening game was against Portugal. Cristiano Ronaldo hit a firm but straight shot from outside the box, and it was the kind of shot you would expect David De Gea to save in his sleep, but he fumbled it. The ball squirmed through his grasp and over the line. In that campaign, Spain faced 7 shots and conceded 6. That mistake seemed to linger, and it marked the beginning of a period where his invincibility started to be questioned. He has since recovered and is now playing at Fiorentina, who, as at the time of this publishing, aren't doing very, very well, but he's still flashing brilliance just like his good old days. In the same year and the months prior, Sven Ulreich at Bayern Munich had a similar moment of utter heartbreak. He was standing in for the injured Manuel Neuer, and Ulreich had been having a fantastic season as his replacement. But then came the Champions League semi-final against Real Madrid. Just after half-time, a back pass comes to him. And for a split second, Ulreich seemed to have a total mental short circuit. He looked like he was going to pick the ball up, and then he realized he couldn't. And in that moment of indecision, he slipped and he missed the ball entirely, letting Benzema tap it into an empty net. Maybe Benzema's the problem for these keepers, I don't know. Karius, now Ulreich, who knows? He explained that he saw Benzema coming and he originally thought he had to deal with a one-on-one, but then the ball came through and he remembered that he couldn't use his hands because it was a back pass. In those milliseconds of conflict, it was absolute disaster for him. Bayern were knocked out, Ulreich sat alone on the pitch and he was inconsolable. Sadly, it is kind of what he's going to be remembered for. And what's worse than that, the suffering isn't just personal. It's amplified 1,000 times over by modern media and fan culture. These days, a mistake is no longer a small moment in a game. It's a GIF, it's a meme, it's a viral video clip replayed millions of times within minutes. Pundits break down the error in slow motion from 5 different angles. Newspapers run headlines with cruel puns. Online, the reaction is a torrent of abuse from harsh criticism to, as in Karius's case, death threats. This creates a dynamic where the position is simultaneously undervalued for its routine excellence and overblamed for its rare failures. A season of flawless work is just taken for granted, but one high-profile mistake is treated like a moral failing. The narrative becomes, he cost us the game. And it's a simplistic summary that ignores everything else. It's not just the fear of letting a goal in, it's the fear of the global humiliation that will inevitably follow. It's a complete bottle job from the culture that's surrounding the game, and I think we need to do better. If you list a bunch of world-class keepers, you inevitably reach a point where you remember their blunders. The best of the best are all guilty of it. Every single one, but for whatever rhyme and reason, it's not what they're remembered for. And it's so fucking strange. It's not just your Kariuses, your De Geas, your Rob Greens, your Onanas. It's your Buffons, your Casillas, your Kahns, your Czechs. They've all had howlers in the past. As a goalkeeper myself, words from the press and even the public have affected me, even though I was playing in the local state league. In Australia, people might be familiar, but there's this famous A-League meme that went around the country years ago that occurred because a coach said to a journalist that his son was a shit goalkeeper. It was all over the news for months when it happened, and it created a stir in the football community at the time. And you might be shocked to find out that shit goalkeeper Josip Gombau was talking about, it was me. Lucky I had the benefit of hindsight on my side, but at the time, it absolutely crushed me. At one point, it was my dream to be involved professionally with football, and to have my name be dragged through the mud before it started really upset me as an 18-year-old. I didn't have the mental toughness or the right frame of mind to not let it affect me, and it did for years. And then, of course, like an idiot, when the whole fiasco happened, I was the talk of social media, and the comments were nothing but vile and vicious towards me, even though barely anyone knew who I was. It wasn't a fun time, but I got through it. It's the unfortunate moniker I have to carry around, but it's better me than some other kid, you know? So yeah, be nice to your fellow keepers, people. Seriously, your words hurt more than you know sometimes. So that brings us back to the question, why the hell would anyone choose to be a keeper? Because for the pain, there's still that love. There's that feeling of a perfect save, of being the hero. The position attracts a certain personality, resilient, mentally tough, and yeah, according to my cousin Daniel, to be a keeper, you either have to be stupid or crazy. There's a reason we talk about the goalkeepers union, an unwritten brotherhood of those who get it. When one keeper messes up, keepers will often rush to the defense because they know it could have been them, or at one point, it has been them. But this one mistake defines a career narrative is often flat out wrong. We as fans, we got to do better. We need to fight the urge to scapegoat and remember the saves as much as we remember those errors. We need to offer a little bit of empathy instead of just outrage. The goalkeeper's curse is real, but so is the courage for those who are willing to have balls in their face, week in, week out. I probably could word that less weird, but next time you see a keeper make a mistake and before you join in the chorus of groans, take a second. Remember how fucking hard it is to be a goalkeeper. And remember, they're only human. To all my keepers out there, keep your palms on your balls. Big love to all of you. Ciao.